Week on Christian World News, beaten and tortured in a Sudanese prison. See how a man dedicated to helping persecuted Christians soon found himself fighting for his own life and trapped in a cell with terrorists. Hear his amazing story in our exclusive interview. Plus, he's the baby who captured the hearts of millions around the world. Is there hope for Charlie Gard, the ailing infant whose parents were forbidden by their own government to bring him to the U.S. for life-saving treatments? And some may view the prophetic as a little creepy, but the Bible calls it a gift. See how this man is using his gift to reach the lost in Hollywood.
여러분 안녕하십니까? 크리스천 월드뉴스입니다. 수년간 순교자의 소리와 박해받는 교회를 섬긴 체코 출신의 한 사람이 있습니다. 피터 야색인데요. 이후 수단으로 여행을 떠난 야색은 간첩행위를 했다는 혐의로 기소돼 20년형을 선고받았습니다. 하지만 감사하게도 국제사회의 움직임과 하나님의 은혜로 석방됐는데요. 인터뷰를 통해 당시의 경험을 들어봤습니다.
Arrested during a trip to Sudan, missionary Peter Yashik was imprisoned with members of ISIS.
One of the ISIS members was a Libyan guy who, at the age of 12, was a personal guard of Osama bin Laden in Tora Bora. And later on, when he returned to Libya, he was one of the murderers who slaughtered the 20 Egyptians on the Libyan shore. He told me that if I was an American or Russian, that he would break my neck immediately and kill me. He took out a fishing string, quite a strong fishing string from his pocket, and he was showing how he can kill a person within a few seconds with this fishing string.
Peter discovered his other cellmates were just as extreme. When asked to share news from the outside, he told them about the Paris terrorist attack.
When I said that 129 people got killed, they interrupted me and they started to shout Allahu Akbar for several minutes. So immediately I knew that the company that I was in, and I stopped telling them any more news. They called me a filthy pig or a filthy rat, and if I did not react to this new name, they started to beat me with slapping my face or fist to my face, or then they used a wooden stick. So I gradually learned to live with the new name. I was not Peter anymore, I was just filthy pig.
How did it come to this? Why was this man dedicated to helping persecuted Christians now himself persecuted? Peter's arrest came in December 2015, just 2 years after the Sudanese government thought it had expelled all foreign Christian workers from the country. While visiting Sudan, Peter met with Christian leaders and recorded some video. Agents confiscated his equipment and charged him with spying against the government. During his first 4 months in jail, Peter asked God to return him to his family. His epiphany came after he led some Eritrean prisoners to Christ.
And I suddenly started to realize that there is a purpose, that the Lord has a purpose for me to be in prison, to share the gospel with those people. And I started to be even more courageous to open my mouth and share the gospel also with the Muslims who were in the previous cell with me.
In January 2017, a Sudanese court sentenced Peter to 20 years in prison. His work helping persecuted Christians in Sudan was considered an anti-state activity, espionage.
I really was considered to be a very dangerous person, and they mentioned that I am an employee of the spy organization called VOM. So actually VOM was it's a spy organization.
Not a missionary.
No,
not
it is
a mission
spy
organization.
Yeah.
The son of a pastor, Peter had experienced persecution before, growing up in communist Czechoslovakia.
A wire service bulletin flashes the word to an unbelieving world.
Christian oppression intensified in Czechoslovakia after Red Army tanks rolled through Prague in August 1968. Government agents constantly monitored Peter's parents and their Christian activities.
They knew that we were receiving Bibles and we were receiving Christian literature, and we were also my parents were distributing that.
One day, Peter returned home from school and found his parents missing.
They were arrested by secret police and interrogated, and apparently the secret police wanted to know what was going on in our house.
And 36 years later, like his parents, Peter was arrested for his Christian activities, only this time at the hands of Islamists, not communists. But God prepared Peter for his prison experience years earlier, when his father gave him a special gift.
Without saying much, he brought a book written by Richard Wurmbrand. The name of the book in German was In Gottes Untergrund, which means in God's underground in English, and I was fluent in German at that time already, so he gave me this book and he said, read this book, it will encourage your faith.
Peter's father passed at the age of 89, while Peter was in prison. And what do you think, Peter, he would say to you about your time in prison and what you went through if he were still around now and he knew about it? All the details.
Yeah, I'm quite sure that he would be proud of me. I'm quite sure, yeah.
Peter was freed after spending 14 months in prison. He credits the Czech government for negotiating his release and the prayers and support of Christians around the world. Nearly 500,000 people signed a petition for him, and thousands sent encouraging cards and letters. Peter says he was brought to tears when he heard some Sudanese women near the prison singing Christian praise songs. How did your experience change you? How is Peter Yashik different now compared to before your prison experience?
When you come through this situation, you realize that everything that you have is a grace of God, and it is only His strength that it is in prison. It is not your own strength that you can survive. Being humble and being faithful till the last moment, this is the moment when we can be more than conquerors when we go through difficult situation because of our faith in Jesus Christ.
A humble servant of the persecuted church, persecuted himself, and then freed from prison. Grateful for those who prayed and for learning to wait patiently on God for victory and grace. Gary Lane, CBN News, Prague.
미국의 복음주의 지도자들이 한자리에 모여 도널드 트럼프 미 대통령을 위해 기도했습니다.
Tony Perkins, Pastor Jack Graham, Ralph Reed, Michelle Bachmann, many others were there. Johnny Moore, former senior vice president at Liberty University, posted pictures of this special moment. But Moore says this was more than just a photo op. He says it shows a substantive relationship between the evangelical community and this administration. As President Trump recently told CBN founder Pat Robertson in an exclusive interview, he has a special bond with evangelicals.
The evangelicals were so great to me, and they did. They came out in massive numbers.
That's right.
And on top of that, I got 83%. But they came out in record numbers. They never came out like that. And we've really helped because I've gotten rid of the Johnson Amendment. Now we're going to go try and get rid of it permanently in Congress. But I signed an executive order so that now people like you that I want to hear from, ministers and preachers and rabbis and whoever it may be, they can speak. And that's going to be a great thing for Christianity, believe me. A great, great thing. And it's a great thing for religion.
얼마 전 트럼프 대통령은 독일 함부르크에서 열린 G20 정상회담에 참석하기도 했습니다.
Where violent protesters took to the streets. They burned cars, raided supermarkets, and battled with police. Despite the chaos, Christians made a difference by coming together to pray for their country. When asked why, the leader of the prayer initiative says it's what God tells Christians to do.
We're all realizing that the power of the police alone does not help in this situation. The Bible, in the first letter of Timothy, encourages us to pray for the powerful, for the mighty, and for the ones who are executing power. And we may pray that God's will be done, and He has promised that this will happen.
한편 독일에서는 동성결혼 합법화를 두고 의회에 투표가 진행됐습니다. 동성 커플에게 부부가 될 수 있는 권리를 주고 입양도 허락하는 법안입니다.
Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel opposes gay marriage. She believes it should be between a man and a woman only, but she hopes the decision will lead to, quote, social cohesion and peace.
영국 국교회가 성전환자들을 인정하자는 발의에 찬성했습니다. 이와 관련해 영국 국교회의 크리스토퍼 뉴렌즈 목사는 하나님께서는 성전환자들도 사랑하신다고 믿고 있다고 말했습니다.
Quote, we believe that trans people are cherished and loved by God, who created them and is present through all the twists and turns of their lives. The church also denounced conversion therapy for those struggling with same-sex attraction.
얼마 전 전해드렸던 런던의 한 아이 소식 기억하실 겁니다. 불치병에 걸린 아기에게 새로운 치료법을 시도해보기 위해 미국으로 가기를 원하고 있지만 영국의 의료진의 반대에 부딪혔었는데요. 찰리 가드의 부모님이 새로운 의학적 증거를 제출하면서 상황이 달라졌습니다. 런던에서 전합니다.
Charlie's parents say as long as there is a chance of saving their son's life,
it's a chance worth taking. We've been fighting for this medication since November. We're now in July. He's our son, he's our flesh and blood. We feel that it should be our right as parents to decide to give him a chance at life.
British and European courts have backed up doctors who want to turn off Charlie's life support, while his parents want to take him to America for experimental treatment. Charlie has a rare mitochondrial disease that can cause brain damage and death, but his parents say he does not have pain and suffering.
And he has not got catastrophic brain damage, as I'm sure you've read. There's no evidence of catastrophic brain damage. His brain is affected, but this medicine can get into the brain and help that.
Charlie's parents, Connie and Chris, simply want their son to have another chance to live. And they told CBN News they would be thrilled if he could come to America.
That's amazing. We love the support we've had, from all over the world, but America's been amazing. So yeah, I do have family in America. But yeah, no, we're really, really grateful. It's overwhelming.
The parents also delivered a petition Sunday with more than 350,000 signatures, urging London's Great Ormond Street Hospital to allow Charlie to be taken to the United States. Meanwhile, 2 U.S. congressmen say they'll offer legislation making Charlie a permanent resident so he can come to America. Dale Hurd, CBN News, London.
작가이자 제작자, 진행자로 활동하고 있는 숀 볼츠는 특별한 은사를 갖고 있다고 합니다. 이 은사를 통해 할리우드의 많은 배우들에게 복음을 전하고 있다고 하는데요. 함께 만나보시죠.
Is there a Justin and Stephanie? Y'all know Justin and Stephanie? Oh, you're here for real. Thank you.
Sean Bowles begins with just a few words.
I'm seeing July 15th over you. What is that? Your birthday. And who else's birthday? Your dog. That's so cute.
What follows is a very specific message he hears from heaven.
The Lord said there's a family calling on you, and I feel like he's saying, he gave me your names because he really wants you to feel known.
What's the importance of prophecy in people's lives? Why do you seek to do that and desire to do that and have God use you that way?
I think we have this omnipresent God who's everywhere at once, and yet he's the only God who will have relationship and be present and connect with us right now in the here and now. And prophecy causes us to know that the God of all the universe, who's looking at 7-point-whatever billion people, is stepping into our moment and saying, I value you. You really are mine. I really care about you. What's important to you is even more important than me.
Here in Hollywood, Sean walks red carpets and prays with celebrities like director Mel Gibson, Redskins running back Sean Alexander, and film and television legend Pat Boone. Sean is also a best-selling author, host of Dreams and Mysteries on the Daystar Network, and travels the world, sharing practical wisdom about how anyone can hear the voice of God. 10 years ago, he and his wife started Expressions 58. While the Los Angeles church is open to all, it attracts two very different groups of people, the homeless and Hollywood entertainers.
Those on the street who are homeless, prostitutes, abandoned to the rest of the world, invisible. Why do those people stand out and touch your heart so much? Why do you find yourself reaching out to them with the prophetic?
I think what I love about hearing God's voice is that when you hear God's voice, you can close the reality gap between heaven and earth, meaning there's things that God wants to do that he said he will always do. Isaiah 58 talks about loving the poor, loving people who no one else sees, loving the foreigner. and that's our kingdom, our Christian mandate to do. But when you hear God's voice, you can actually bring a restoration that no natural process can bring, or a moment in time that can lead them to a breakthrough moment, an aha moment to say, God's with me, He loves me, and can be a real turning point, even if it still takes a lifetime to overcome. And for me, you can't hear God's heart without having compassion.
From the least of these to Hollywood's rich and famous.
I heard when I first came here, Sean, I'm homeless in Hollywood, will you build me a home?
That call contradicts the popular notion Hollywood is godless.
Hollywood is like one of the most alive spiritual places there are. It's just that I think there's not the same moral compass. And morality to me is like, it's a virtue. You have to pursue it. And a lot of people who come into a leadership influence because of their talent and their gifting, we expect them to have the moral influence then as well. They may not have ever had a moral compass in their life, a father figure, a mother figure. And so we put this expectation, well, you're now leading a society, so you better be okay in all these areas. And so then when they're not, we judge them. They did a survey a couple years ago, one of the film groups, and they said, how many of you who are working in major studios are there because God, as a Christian, sent you there? 18,000 people responded and said, we're here because God sent us here. 18,000 people. We're involved with so many churches here locally, and makeup artists and singers and songwriters and all these backup singers and like all these managers and agents, writers. They're also involved with their faith, doing things that are so profound. And then you'll have one person who proclaims to be a Christian and who thanks God at the Academy Awards and then has 7 girlfriends at the same time. And we judge all of Hollywood's Christianity by that. And it's really sad because we get disappointed in what they're not. As opposed to celebrating what God is doing, we look at what people are doing and we go, oh, okay, that's what Hollywood's like then. And it's not true.
Sean's new home is in the heart of Studio City. He showed me around the place where countless movies have been shot, including scenes from Batman with Michael Keaton. Marilyn Monroe also spent time on the property where her postage stamp photo was likely taken. These days, the only snapshots are of Sean, his wife, and their 2 young daughters. But it's home base as he works to connect Hollywood and heaven.
The average person only lasts 2 years in Hollywood and pursuing their dream, and then they go home because it's too hard. And if they last more than 2 years, there's some baggage that happens just because how hard it is here, And so when we came here, I didn't really know. All I did is the people and loving them was my vision. I didn't know how to build a structure around that. So we built a church, and it's a beautiful church. Love the church. But in this phase, we're mostly working with people to find their empowerment and who they really are, so that they can go into it before maybe they come into their fullness. They can have a great sense of self-connection and God connection, so that they don't make the same mistakes. And we have a lot of older, seasoned people helping to pour into that, and it's a beautiful process to watch.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News, Los Angeles, California.
헤브론에 있는 족장 동굴이 팔레스타인의 유산이라는 유네스코 세계문화유산에 결정이 내려졌습니다. 이 동굴은 성경의 기록이자 4,000년의 유대 역사를 증명해주는 것이어서 논란이 되고 있습니다.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu read from the book of Genesis at the weekly cabinet meeting.
The connection between the Jewish people and Hebron and the tomb of the patriarchs is one of purchase and of history, which may be without parallel in the history of peoples.
The tomb of the patriarchs here in Hebron goes back to the book of Genesis. The Bible says that Abraham bought this field for 400 shekels and then buried his wife Sarah in the cave of the field of Machpelah. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their wives were buried there more than 2,000 years before Islam was founded.
Of course, this did not prevent the UNESCO World Heritage Committee last Friday from passing yet another delusional resolution which determined that the tomb of the patriarchs, the same cave of Machpelah, is a Palestinian heritage site.
Following the resolution, Netanyahu said Israel would cut $1 million from its UN dues and use it instead to establish a Jewish heritage museum in Hebron.
I think that the claims that the site is under danger are baseless.
Yitzhak Reiter is an expert on holy places.
The motivation is dual. The one is to score points for future negotiations, claiming the ownership of and sovereignty over the cave of the patriarchs and also on Hebron. And the other one is to just prevent Israelis from taking over more space in the site.
King Herod built the structure over the cave 2,000 years ago. You can tell by the unique architectural style. 1,200 years later, the Muslim Mamluk conquerors modified the structure and added the minarets. They now consider it the Al-Ibrahimi Mosque. It's the mosque and surrounding Mamluk structures that Palestinians say are in danger. Under Israel's authority, Jews, Christians, Muslims, and anyone else can pray at the site. But Hebron's deputy mayor, Yusuf al-Jabari, said he'd change that if he could.
It is a pure Muslim mosque. It is a place for Muslim worshippers. And we would do all our efforts and everything we can in order to return this place to being a mosque for Muslim prayers only.
Some believe the UNESCO vote is just one more battlefront in a campaign to erase any Jewish ties to the land of the Bible. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the Tomb of the Patriarchs, Hebron.
오늘 준비한 소식은 여기까지입니다. 저는 다음 주에 다시 찾아오겠습니다. 시청해주신 여러분 고맙습니다.